Chapter 8. Heart to Heart. "This place has the best tea in town," you proclaimed as you led Zenko through the entrance of the shop. Well, in my opinion, that is. Once you'd both removed your shoes and passed through the scroll alcove, elegantly decorated with hand-painted pottery and delicate brush calligraphy, you were seated. There must have been reason for an interim overseer today, for you didn't see the usual host anywhere. While the unfamiliar young man cleaned your tea bowl with a hemp cloth, you addressed him. "I beg your pardon, sir, but where's the tea master today?"
"He had to run an emergency errand this morning. He should be back soon, actually."
"Oh, good. I'm Traveler from the Kyogoku house. If I leave before he returns, do send him my regards, won't you?"
"The Kyogoku house, you say?"
A glint of significance flickered across his eyes, and a playful smile curled up the side of his lips.
"I hear they have the loveliest accommodations. I've had the mind to pay you all a visit myself." Zenitsu's eye twitched at the flirtatious tone in his voice.
"Well, we'd be delighted to have you," you replied politely.
And also honestly. The young man was undeniably handsome, and he'd be a welcome change from the usual old and worn countenance of the house's usual patrons. It would be an honor, truly. He placed the clean tea bowl before you and gracefully rose. "Would you like the traditional or seasonal tea today, miss?"
"Seasonal. And you want that too, right, Zenko-chan?"
"I'll have whatever she's having," he answered slow and with great difficulty. "Of course, miss. And I'll be sure to pass your message along to the owner when he returns. If I were him, I'd be delighted to see you again."
"Thank you."
And with that, he vanished around the corner.
You
took a deep breath and closed your eyes. Under the thatched roof and soft diffused light, you felt at peace, and the tatami floor had a pleasant give under your knees.
"Looks like we found a new patron for our services. Glad I didn't underdress today." Your fingers absent-mindedly traced the hem of your kimono,
and Zenitsu thought his teeth might crack from how hard he'd been clenching his jaw. Suddenly your companion stood, and moved with deliberate steps towards the corner where the young man had just been.
Where are you going?"
"Need to find a wash basin. Got fruit juice on my hands at the market." You managed to make out Zenko's words, though she had grumbled them whilst facing away from you.
"Oh, okay."
Once Zenitsu was certain he was out of sight, he followed his apt hearing towards the kitchen, where the scent of sugar and dough wafted in his direction. The sound of masculine footsteps approached, and right as the gentleman passed through the doorway, he was swiftly pinned against the wall. With an elbow pressed firmly across his collarbone, the young man was too stunned to speak for a moment. Zenitsu took advantage of that fact to bark a question at him. "Just who exactly do you think you are?" The server blinked in shock at the lethal look in the blonde's eyes, and even more so the strength of her grip on his clothes. I don't know what you've got the wrong guy." Zenitsu winced at his response, hoping he was far enough out of your earshot that you wouldn't witness this encounter. He really ought to watch his volume. "Shut up." The demon slayer lowered his voice. "I'm just here to tell you not to get any funny ideas about Traveler-chan. She's mine, you hear? Forgive me. I had no idea your type of relationship." He held up his hands in honest surrender, not wanting to stoke the fire in the hideous girl's eyes any further. "I meant no disrespect." "Good. As long as you understand." He removed his arm and took a step back. "Now bring us the tea, and don't come back." You twirled the hand-painted tea bowl in your hands until Zenko returned, admiring the intricate blue and white floral design. Following shortly behind was your server, who, oddly enough, sat the scalding teapot on a woven trivet, bowed, and immediately took leave. You were left only to balk at the brazen and perplexing act.
That was kind of rude. He forgot to pour it for us."
You puzzled the empty bowls before you.
"I've never had them act like that here."
"Oh, I ran into him on my way back from washing, and asked him if I could pour the tea.
Oh, is that all? You let out a breath, smiling in relief.
Yeah.
Another lie. Zenitsu didn't like this. Deceiving someone he loved seemed to be chipping away at him the more times he did it. All right, well, pour away, Zenko-chan. You held up your tea bowl with both hands, and she proceeded to serve you before herself. Thank you.
You're welcome.
After pulling the konpito from her pocket and placing it on the table, she took a deep sniff of the steam rising from her bowl.
So what makes this tea so special, Traveler-chan? I mean, why is it better than other tea houses?
It has less floral notes than I usually get stuck with this time of year, so there's more depth of flavor. You praised the establishment's wares generously as you always did, but somehow still couldn't manage to keep your tone from sounding a little distant. A cold and hot mixture of guilt and suspicion were swirling in your mind about her, and you couldn't pinpoint exactly why. Perhaps she was just acting jumpy because of last night's dangerous encounter, and then the subsequent crackdown on curfew that followed. That would be a completely reasonable response. So then why were your mistrustful instincts continuing to fire at an alarming rate near her? She had saved you out there on the dark city streets. And from the Oiron, too. But then, that's exactly what was peculiar about her, wasn't it?
Her unnatural chivalry, partly. But first and foremost, it was her speed.
How did she appear right between you and the Oiron so fast when she hadn't even been in the room with you? Had your eyes really been closed that long in anticipation of the impact? Did your rush of adrenaline make it seem like less time had passed? It could have been as simple as that. And yet, you couldn't stop yourself from asking. So, Zenko, before you said you had done some kind of training when you lived on a peach grove. Exactly what kind of training was it?
Zenitsu panicked at the question. If he had been drinking tea at that exact instance, he would have choked. Training? He should have known better than to think a slip-up like that would go unnoticed. What should I say? Zenitsu fretted. What would a girl call training? Maybe as a seamstress or something? No. Then she'd find out I was lying if she ever tore her kimono and asked me to fix it. Wait. She liked that one flower arrangement I made. She even said I was good at it. At last, the stressed young man had his answer. I was training as an apprentice flower vendor.
Oh, so that's how you made that chaplet so fast. You've had practice. You exclaimed in realization, and Zenitsu could hear the aha moment resonate in your voice.
Yeah! Okay, that was a good cover.
Is that where you met the Demon Slayer?
That's exactly right. It was almost as if you were writing his alibi for him. And Zenitsu was grateful for your deductive reasoning skills, and the clear head that he sorely lacked. The enthusiasm with which Zenko exclaimed her answer made your gaze lower, and the scales of suspicion fall away, leaving only shame in its place. How could you be so wary of someone who was so transparently kind to you? You decided it was time to have a heart-to-heart with her, and show the sides of yourself you were silently accusing her of concealing from you. Zenko-chan, I've been thinking about your proposal. Your companion snapped to attention at that. And I think it would be better to give the opportunity to someone else. Chio, for example. Traveler-chan.
I've decided to follow in the Oiron's footsteps.
Huh?
Her jaw fell open so wide that it nearly hit the table.
Why on earth would you want to be like that terrifying woman?
You chuckled gently at her expression. She does have a temper. I won't deny that.
I'll say!
The animated way she said things always managed to make you smile. Even so, in spite of her personal shortcomings, in only the few mere months that she's been here, Our establishment has bloomed like it never had before. We've prospered because of her. Even I have personally profited from her influence.
Really?
Yes. Men slip me money under the table at our Kaisei training sessions, where they scout the girls, just so they can ask me questions about her. Insider information on what she's like, and how to gain an audience with her when there's so much steep competition. It actually gives me hope that I can pay off my debts someday.
You playfully popped one of the tiny candies into your mouth that she had absconded for you.
In all honesty, I had that in mind as a backup plan anyhow, as there was always a chance your Demon Slayer wouldn't be interested in me.
Trust me, that's not going to happen, she mumbled insistently.
Still, if I become like her, maybe I can spare some other young girls from their suffering, and give them a brighter future.
But
I don't need you to save me, Zenko-chan. You've done far too much of that in such a short time already.
She opened and closed her mouth, as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words.
Don't be sad for me, Zenko-chan. It's not so bad, is it? If I do become a worthy successor, I'd have many patrons to choose from, and financial security. Until my looks wear out, of course. That's the best I can hope for.
The words fell from your lips so optimistically, like your situation wasn't sad at all. And Zenitsu felt a strike in his chest. What about you, though?
What do you mean?
You deserve someone who will take care of you, too. A man who loves you. Not just because you're beautiful, but because of who you are. And who will give you the love you deserve, instead of treating you like an object to be bought.
That's what I am, though.
No, you're not! You're more than that! So much more! The ferocity that erupted out of the blonde struck you speechless. It was both flattering and humbling, finding out that someone valued you more than the standard appraisal of the masses, more than you seemed to value yourself. And it was during this realization that her countenance quickly morphed into panic, evidently afraid that she had hurt your feelings, which was actually rather funny to you, since the actual result was quite the opposite. Oh, sorry I yelled at you! What I meant to say was, everyone deserves someone who won't abandon them just because they're old and gray.
You're an ambitious one, aren't you, Zenko?
Your friend frowned at you across the table, but your smile didn't falter.
Wives of Nightfall we are. None of us chose this life. But
if you did have a choice!
She gripped your hands with conviction, like she was hanging on your next words, and you heaved a sigh, caving in the intensity of her stare. She was demanding honesty, and heaven knows you didn't have the heart to deny it to her any longer.
Yes, I think every girl dreams of that, whether we'll admit it openly or not.
You met her gaze.
But it's not our place. Constantly comparing yourself to others is the quickest way to unhappiness. So it's best not to think about those things, Zenko-chan. You might lose your footing, and it would break my heart to see that happen.
As wonderful as a knight in shining armor sounded to you, a loving husband to share your burdens with, how could you go through with it? Yes, you had always wanted to be a mother, and raise your children the same way Omitsu had raised you. She was firm but never cruel, a valiant crested ibis keeping all of her chicks neath the safety of her wings. With Omitsu gone, who would replace her? Who would temper the outbursts of Warabihime with logic and pragmatism? The chilling answer was, no one. And that was why you couldn't fly and be happy by yourself. Couldn't gallivant off and leave Chiyo behind.
And if I go, what's to become of you, Zenko?
As if she had read your thoughts aloud, she gripped your hands tighter. Next she spoke low and slow,
golden eyes ablaze with sobriety, and another emotion you couldn't quite place. If I were a man, and I could protect you, would you leave here with me?
What a ridiculous question! Yes, sweep me away, Zenko!
You guffawed with a theatrical wave of your hand, descending into a fit of uncontrollable laughter. It took you a moment to notice your friend rising from the floor. She placed a handful of money on the table as you caught your breath.
Where are you going? I didn't upset you, did I?
Your stomach sank when you saw her moving towards the doorway. No. I just have something I have to do.
Zenko! Zenko!
To be continued. Sorry, this chapter took forever. I had the basic scene, but it just didn't have the heart that all the other chapters seemed to have, so I didn't feel right about recording it for a long time. But finally I had some inspiration and added the ending dialogue about Omitsu and loyalty and family, and at last I was happy enough to post it, so the ending is already planned, so you guys get one more chapter of Rising Action and then it's the climax! We're almost done, y'all! Hope you're as excited as I am, so as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye!